G'day, I'm Mike. I'm a storyteller. Always have been. Now I'm turning myself into a writer because I want to share a bunch of stories on a planet that I have built from scratch in my head. Today, two topics. One part of my writing process. What you see on the screen there is first draft. Now, it's not actually a first draft. It's a second or third draft, but the part of the story that I've written and rewritten has changed so much that this is effectively still a first draft. And for me, a first draft is like if I was telling the story orally, not writing it. Because as you can see, waving the hands around, the voice goes up and down, face does all kinds of things. When I'm telling a story, I add the colour and the texture and the rhythm and the pacing and all that stuff is in the body. So when I write that basic storyline, it is, in words on a page, bland and plain and lacking all colour. But I can get the storyline out writing it like this, and then the work is coming back and adding all the details and the texture and making all the decisions involved in how you do that. Okay. There was only one road up the escarpment to the plateau. Gorsalxo did not need a road, but they used this one to make a point. The Gorsalxo are nomadic hordes. Not exactly a warrior culture, but they certainly are a tough crowd. A well-fortified guard post with a complement of 20 stood sentinel over the road at the bottom of the escarpment. So there is a fortress, it's a palace, being used as a fortress at the top of the escarpment. So you're out on the plains, you come to there's towering cliffs, there's one road up the cliffs, and then at the top of the cliffs there's a very large plateau. At the other end of that plateau is Stone Garden, the palace / fortress. It's a good place to hide because this is in the northern areas of the planet, long way from most other stuff. Changsha and his 3 pathmates cut their way through the 20 and left only silence behind them. Or left only silence cut through with the arguments of crows and ravens. I don't know which picture. Empty silence or the silence of corpses being used for food. I don't know which one yet. At the outer limits of the garden, so the palace is called the Stone Garden because out the front of the palace, thousands of years ago, was this vast landscaped garden area. But that was thousands of years ago, and it is now all gone to forest and jungle and mayhem and chaos. The refugees who live in this palace now have some guarding thing set up. At the outer limits of the garden, there was another guard post, more an administration office than a military post, but still with a full complement of armed guard. The Gorsalxo warriors sliced most of them open and left them screaming down into that most final silence. The warriors, the Gorsalxo, wanted attention. They had a point to make. Now, you can see no texture, no detail, no description of the surroundings, no description of the sounds or the smells, no description of the suffering, just the bare minimum. So what's there? That's going to be hundreds of words. And every one of them, certainly all the nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, are decision. Okay, so two things. One was the writing process. The other was this. If you watched video 1 and 2, pretty sure this is 3. If you watched video 1 and 2, I was introducing you to Gorsalxo, to Chang Sha, who is a Gorsalxo. And he was in the Stone Tomb. But this event here, which is much before we find him in the Stone Tomb, this was when I first imagined Chang Sha, but I did not imagine him as a character other than he was one of the nomad warriors who were going to come up to the palace thinking that they were going to scare all the refugees and they were going to get their ass whooped and sent running back to their tribe with the news that it wasn't going to be quite so easy to do what the nomads wanted to do. I can't actually remember where or when he shifted from being essentially a bit player to being a really important player. I find it fascinating. I've got a few characters, and I'm probably not the first one that this happens to, that the difference between their role from the first time they appear to when you get to this point where I've got hundreds of thousands of words written, the difference between the two is insane and fantastic and wonderful, because it is awesome fun to go back and look at what your imagination has created, because it's a lot and it's really cool. From time to time I read things that I wrote 2 years ago and I go, wow, that's really good. And then, oh, I wrote that. Cool. Maybe I can do this. So this was when I first met him, but when I wrote the first version of this, he didn't even have a name. Now, this is the beginning of an entire story arc that goes all the way through this novel and, in fact, into subsequent novels, and what he does at this palace has ongoing role to play in history. And Lanweef, this planet, has roughly 80,000 years of history that are in the books. It's got more than that, but what are in the books. And what he does here is a contributor to all of the 80,000 years minus the 7,000, because this story occurs about 7,000 years in from the first day. Okay, that's enough for this video. I'm Michael. I'm writing. I hope you're reading, and I hope we are both enjoying the process. Take care.